The underground market in Seoul was always busy on Saturday nights. Do-hyun walked through the narrow paths between old shops and street vendors. The smell of incense mixed with dust filled the air. He loved coming here to look for old things from the past. Ancient coins, broken pottery, old books. These things made him feel connected to history. Do-hyun was 28 years old and worked at a small museum during the day. But his real passion was collecting antiques. He spent most of his money on old items that other people thought were worthless. His apartment was full of things from different time periods and different countries. Tonight, he was looking for something special. He didn't know what exactly, but he would know it when he saw it. That's how it always worked for him. Something would catch his eye, and he would feel a pull toward it. He turned down a path he had never noticed before. The shops here looked older and more forgotten than the others. Fewer people walked this way. At the end of the path, he saw a small shop with a faded wooden sign. The windows were so dirty he could barely see inside. Do-hyun pushed open the door. A small bell rang above his head. The inside of the shop was dark and crowded with objects piled on top of each other. Shelves reached from floor to ceiling, all of them packed with items covered in dust. An old man sat behind a counter at the back of the shop. He looked up when Do-hyun entered, then went back to reading his newspaper. The man's face was wrinkled, and his hair was completely white. He wore thick glasses that made his eyes look bigger than they were. "Excuse me," Do-hyun said. "Can I look around?" The old man nodded without speaking. His name tag said Mr. Choi. Do-hyun began searching through the shop. He found old vases, wooden masks, stone carvings, and metal tools. Everything was interesting, but nothing called him the way he hoped. He was about to leave when he noticed a small table in the corner. On the table sat a dark sphere about the size of a grapefruit. It looked like it was made of metal, but the surface was covered with what looked like scales. Dragon scales. The scales seemed to shift colors when he moved his head, from black to dark blue to deep purple. Do-hyun picked up the sphere carefully. It was heavier than he expected. The metal felt warm against his hands, which was strange because everything else in the cold shop felt cool to the touch. He turned around and saw strange symbols carved between the scales. The symbols didn't look like any language he had ever studied. "How much for this?" Do-hyun asked, holding up the sphere. Mr. Choi looked up from his paper. When he saw what Do-hyun was holding, his expression changed. He looked surprised, then worried, then relieved all at once. "That thing," Mr. Choi said slowly, "it has been in my family for many generations. My grandfather gave it to my father. My father gave it to me. We were told never open it. Open it." Do-hyun examined the sphere more closely. He couldn't see any seam or opening. How would someone open it? "I don't know," Mr. Choi said. "I never tried. The stories say it came from the mountains in the north, from a cave that collapsed hundreds of years ago. My ancestors found it and kept it. They said it was dangerous." "Dangerous how?" Do-hyun asked. Mr. Choi shrugged. "Just old family stories. Probably nothing true. You want to buy it? I'll give you a good price. 50,000 won. Do-hyun was surprised. 50,000 won was very cheap, about $40. For something this old and unusual, he expected to pay much more. But he wasn't going to argue. "I'll take it," he said. Mr. Choi wrapped the sphere in old newspaper and put it in a plastic bag. As he handed it to Do-hyun, he said, "Be careful with it. If the old stories are true, this thing has been waiting for something. Or someone." Do-hyun thanked him and left the shop. He clutched the bag tightly as he walked back to the underground market toward the subway station. The sphere felt warm even through the newspaper and plastic. When he got home to his small apartment, Do-hyun cleared a space on his desk. He unwrapped the sphere and set it under his desk lamp. The light made the scales shimmer even more. He took pictures of the symbols with his phone, thinking he might try to translate them later. He made dinner and ate while watching the sphere from his kitchen table. It sat there on his desk, looking both beautiful and mysterious. He had a strange feeling about it, like it was watching him back. After dinner, Do-hyun sat at his desk and examined the sphere more closely with a magnifying glass. The craftsmanship was incredible. Each scale was perfectly formed. The symbols were carved with precision. This wasn't just old, this was ancient, and it was made by someone with amazing skill. He tried searching online for similar artifacts but found nothing. He looked up the symbols, but they didn't match any ancient language in his databases. The sphere was completely unique. As midnight approached, Dohayan was ready for bed. He started to put the sphere away in his display cabinet when something strange happened. The symbols began to glow. A faint blue light came from inside the carvings, getting brighter with each second. Dohayan froze. His heart started beating faster. The sphere was now glowing bright enough to light up his whole desk. The warmth from it increased until it felt hot against his hands. Then he heard it, a voice, not from outside, but from inside his head. It spoke clearly, like someone was standing right next to him. Dohayan. He dropped the sphere. It landed on his desk with a heavy thunk, but didn't break. The blue light continued to glow. His hands were shaking. "This isn't real," he whispered to himself. "I'm tired. I'm imagining things." The voice spoke again, stronger this time. "Dohayan, please. I have waited 3,000 years. You must listen to me." Dohayan stepped back from his desk. His mind raced. Was he going crazy? Had someone put something in his food? Was this sphere some kind of trick with electronics inside? But deep down, he knew this was something else. Something impossible. Something that would change his life forever. The sphere's glow began to pulse, like a heartbeat, and the voice spoke his name one more time, filled with hope and urgency. "Dohayan, finally you found me." He stared at the glowing sphere on his desk, too scared to touch it, but too curious to run away. Whatever this thing was, whatever was speaking to him, it had been waiting for him specifically, and now there was no going back. Dohayan didn't sleep that night. He sat on his bed, staring at the glowing sphere on his desk. The blue light had become softer, but it never went away completely. The voice had stopped speaking after calling his name, and now there was only silence. As the sun began to rise, Dohayan finally found the courage to approach the sphere again. He sat down at his desk and took a deep breath. "Hello?" he said quietly, feeling foolish for talking to an object. "Are you still there?" The blue light pulsed once, then the voice returned. It sounded calmer now, almost gentle. "Yes, Dohayan, I am here. I am always here. Thank you for speaking to me." "Were you?" Dohayan asked. "Are you some kind of computer? A recording?" "No," the voice said. "I am alive. I am conscious. My name, in your language, would be closest to Miho, but that is not my true name. My true name cannot be spoken by human mouths." Dohayan felt his hands trembling again. "Miho. Okay, were you really? Why are you in this sphere?" "I will show you," Miho said, "but you must touch the sphere again. I need contact to share my memories with you. I promise I will not harm you." Dohayan hesitated. Everything in his logical mind told him this was dangerous, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. Slowly, he reached out and placed both hands on the warm metal surface. Immediately, his vision changed. The room around him disappeared. Instead, he saw images flowing through his mind like a movie. But these weren't just images. He could feel emotions with them, smell the air, hear the sounds. It was like he was actually there. He saw Earth, but not the Earth he knew. This was thousands of years ago. The land was wild and untamed. And in the sky, he saw them, dragons, massive creatures with scales that shimmered like crystals. They flew through the air with grace and power. But these weren't the mindless beasts from fairy tales. These dragons had intelligence in their eyes. They had purpose. The vision shifted. Now he saw dragons working alongside humans. Ancient people who looked like his ancestors, Koreans from long ago. Together, they were building structures, temples and towers made from stone and crystal. The dragons used some kind of energy that flowed from their bodies, shaping the materials with their minds. "We live with your kind," Miho's voice explained in his head. "Thousands of years before recorded history, dragons were not animals. We were beings of higher consciousness. We help humanity grow and learn. We were friends. The vision changed again, and this time Dohayan saw something terrifying. The sky was ripping open, tears in reality itself. And through those tears came creatures that hurt to look at. They had too many angles, too many dimensions. They seemed to exist in a way that broke the normal rules of space. The VRYNN, Miho said, and Dohayan could hear the fear in his voice even after thousands of years. They came from beyond your dimension. They wanted Earth. They want to consume everything. Humans, dragons, all life. We fought them, but they were too powerful. Dohayan watched as dragons and humans battled these impossible creatures. The war was devastating. Cities burned. Mountains crumbled. Thousands died on both sides. We were losing, Miho continued. The VRYNN could not be killed by normal means. So the dragons made a choice. A terrible choice. The vision showed 13 dragons gathering in a circle. They were the largest and most powerful of their kind. In the center of the circle sat 13 metal spheres, soul vessels. We put our consciousness into these vessels, Miho explained. Our minds, our souls, our life force. We left our bodies behind in hibernation. The combined power of 13 dragon souls created a shield around your entire planet, a barrier that the VRYNN could not cross. Dohayan saw the shield form, invisible dome of energy spreading across the whole Earth. The VRYNN crashed against it, but could not break through. Slowly, they retreated back into the dimensional tiers. The tiers sealed shut. We saved Earth, Miho said, but we gave up everything to do it. We have been trapped in these spheres for 3,000 years, keeping the shield active, while the world forgot we ever existed. The vision faded, and Dohayan was back in his apartment. He pulled his hands away from the sphere, breathing hard. His heart was pounding. What he had just seen was impossible, yet it felt completely real. Why me? Dohayan asked. Why are you talking to me? Why now? The shield is failing, Miho said, and there was urgency in his voice now. 3,000 years is too long. Our power is fading. The VRYNN are trying to break through again. We need help. What kind of help? I'm just a museum worker. I'm nobody special. That is not true, Miho said. I called your name because of your blood. You are a descendant of the Guardians, the humans who worked with us in the ancient times. Only someone with Guardian blood can help us now. Your ancestor was named Taeyong. He was bonded to me, and I can sense his bloodline in you. Dohayan stood up and started pacing his small apartment. This was too much. Dragons, dimensional invaders, ancient bloodlines. It sounded like something from a movie or video game, not real life. What do you need me to do? He asked. The 13 soul vessels were scattered across the world when we created the shield, Miho explained. This was done for safety. If they were all in one place, the VRYNN could destroy them all at once. But now we need to bring them back together. With all 13 vessels united, we can restore the shield to full power. And perhaps we can even awaken the dragons from their long sleep. You want me to find 12 more of these spheres? Dohayan asked. They could be anywhere on Earth. That's impossible. I can help you, Miho said. I know where each vessel was hidden. I have memories from 3,000 years ago, and you will not be alone. There are others who can help, but we must move quickly. Every day, the shield grows weaker. Every day, the VRYNN come closer to breaking through. Dohayan looked out his apartment window at the Seoul skyline. The city was waking up. People were starting their normal days, going to work, living their lives. None of them knew that an invisible shield in space was the only thing protecting them from creatures that wanted to destroy everything. He thought about ignoring all of this. He could put the sphere in a box and try to forget about it, return to his normal life. But he knew he couldn't. If what Miho said was true, then the entire world was in danger. And apparently, he was one of the few people who could help stop it. Okay, Dohayan said finally. I'll help you, but I need proof. I need to show someone else. Someone who can verify this isn't all in my head. There is someone, Miho said. A friend of yours. Jaiwin. She is an archaeologist, yes? She studies ancient languages and lost civilizations. Do-Hyen was startled. How do you know about Jaiwan? I can see some of your memories when we touch, Miho said. Do not worry. I do not look at private things, but I can see that you trust her. Bring her here. I can show her proof that will convince her. Do-Hyen picked up his phone. It was still early, but this couldn't wait. He called Jaiwan. Jaiwan arrived at Do-Hyen's apartment 2 hours later. She was a tall woman with short black hair and glasses. She carried a large bag filled with books and research papers like she always did. Jaiwan and Do-Hyen had been friends since university, where they both studied history. This better be important, Jaiwan said as she walked through the door. I was supposed to meet with the university director this morning. It's important, Do-Hyen said. Trust me, you need to see this. He led her to his desk where the sphere sat. The blue glow had faded, making it look like an ordinary antique again. Jaiwan picked it up and examined it carefully. Interesting craftsmanship, she said. The symbols are unusual. Where did you find this? Underground market. Do-Hyen said, but that's not the important part. Just watch. He placed his hand on the sphere next to hers. Immediately, the blue light returned brighter than before. Jaiwan gasped and almost dropped it. What is this? She asked. Some kind of electric device? Then Miho's voice spoke, and this time both of them could hear it. Hello, Jaiwan. My name is Miho. I am the last consciousness of the dragon kind. I need your help. Jaiwan pulled her hand away quickly. She looked at Do-Hyen with wide eyes. Is this a joke? Did you set this up? It's not a joke, Do-Hyen said. Touch it again. Let him show you what he showed me. Jaiwan hesitated, then slowly placed her hand back on the sphere. Her eyes went blank as Miho shared his memories with her. Do-Hyen watched as her expression changed from doubt to shock to wonder. When the vision ended, she sat down heavily in his desk chair. That's impossible, she whispered. Dragons? Dimensional invaders? This can't be real. I can prove it is real, Miho said through the sphere. Jaiwan, you have been searching for a lost Korean text, the Chronicle of the Mountain Kings. You believe it was destroyed in a fire 200 years ago, but it was not destroyed. It is hidden in the basement of the Gyeongju National Museum, behind a false wall in Storage Room 7. Jaiwan stood up so fast she almost knocked over the chair. How could you possibly know that? That museum has never been fully cataloged. No one knows everything that's in their storage. I know because I was there when that text was written, Miho said. It contains the true history of the Dragon Alliance. Go and find it. Then you will believe. 3 days later, Jaiwan called Do-Hyen. She was crying and laughing at the same time. She had found the text exactly where Miho said it would be. The ancient book contained drawings of dragons working with humans, building temples, sharing knowledge. It matched everything Miho had shown them. I believe you, Jaiwan said when she came back to his apartment. I don't understand it, but I believe you. So what do we do now? We find the other soul vessels, Do-Hyen said. All 13 need to be together to restore the shield. Miho guided them to their first location. The second soul vessel was in Mongolia, hidden in the ruins of an ancient monastery in the mountains. The monastery had been abandoned for centuries, and very few people knew it existed. Do-Hyen and Jaiwan flew to Mongolia and hired a local guide named Suho. He was a quiet man in his 40s who knew the mountains better than anyone. When they told him they were looking for old ruins, he nodded. My grandfather told me stories about the sky serpents, Suho said as they rode horses into the mountains. He said they lived in these mountains long ago and protected our people. Everyone thought he was crazy, but I always wondered if the stories were true. The journey took 2 days. The monastery was high in the mountains, accessible only by a narrow path. The buildings were mostly collapsed, covered in snow and ice. But Miho directed them to a specific location, a chamber beneath the main temple. They had to dig through rocks and frozen earth to reach it. Finally, they broke through into an underground room. The walls were covered in the same symbols as the first sphere. And there, on a stone pedestal in the center of the room, sat another soul vessel. This one was slightly different. The scales had a greenish tint, and the symbols glowed with a faint green light instead of blue. Do-Hyen approached it carefully and placed his hand on the surface. Immediately, another voice entered his mind. This one was female and much more aggressive than Miho. "Who dares touch my vessel?" the voice demanded. "Who are you?" "My name is Do-Hyen. Miho sent me. We're here to collect the soul vessels and restore the shield." "Miho," the voice said with contempt, always so trusting of humans. "I am Yuna, and I do not trust you." Through the connection, Yuna showed Do-Hyen a different version of history. She showed him humans betraying dragons, stealing their knowledge, using their power for war. She showed him the dragons who disagreed with the sacrifice, who believed humans would eventually destroy themselves and didn't deserve to be saved. Not all dragons agreed to this shield. Yuna said, "Some of us were forced into these vessels against our will, and you expect me to help you now?" "The VRYNN are coming back," Do-Hyen said. "If the shield fails, everyone dies. Humans and dragons both. Perhaps that is what should happen," Yuna said coldly. Miho's voice joined the conversation. "Yuna, please. We argued about this 3,000 years ago. The decision was made. Now we must live with it." "You made the decision," Yuna said. "The rest of us had no choice." Despite her anger, Yuna didn't stop them from taking her vessel. Do-Hyen carefully packed both spheres in his backpack. They were starting to leave the chamber when Suho shouted a warning. "Someone's coming." Many people. They rushed to the entrance and saw armed men climbing up the mountain path. There were at least a dozen of them, all wearing black tactical gear. They moved with military precision. "How did they find us?" Jaiwan asked. A woman's voice called out from below. "Do-Hyen, we know what you're carrying. Give us the soul vessels, and no one gets hurt." A woman appeared at the front of the group. She was young, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and confident movements. She carried a rifle, but held it pointed down. "My name is Hannah," she called out. "I represent an organization that has been protecting humanity for centuries. We know about the dragons. We know about the vessels. And we cannot let you collect them." "Why not?" Do-Hyen shouted back. "The shield is failing. If we don't restore it, the VRYNN will destroy everything." "The VRYNN are a lie," Hannah said. "A story the dragons told to make humans depend on them. We have researched the truth. The dragons want to use the vessels to return to power. They want to rule over humanity again. We won't let that happen." "You're wrong," Do-Hyen said. "I've seen the truth. The VRYNN are real." "Then you've been deceived," Hannah said. She raised her rifle. "Last chance. Give us the vessels." Suho grabbed Do-Hyen's arm. "There's another way out. Through the back of the monastery. It's dangerous, but we can make it." They ran. Behind them, they heard Hannah shouting orders to her men. Gunfire echoed through the mountains, but the shots went over their heads. Hannah's people were trying to scare them, not kill them. The back path was barely visible, covered in ice and snow. They slipped and slid down the mountainside, sometimes falling, sometimes catching themselves on rocks. Do-Hyen held his backpack tight, protecting the two vessels inside. They reached the bottom and found Suo's horses where they had left them. They rode hard, not stopping until they were far from the monastery. Only when they were sure no one was following did they finally rest. "Who were those people?" Jaiwan asked, breathing hard. "Humans who fear us," Miho said through the sphere. "They have existed throughout history. Every time dragons and humans worked together, there were always some who opposed it. It seems they have organized themselves. They'll be looking for us," Do-Hyen said. "And they probably know where the other vessels are, too." "Then we must move faster," Miho said. "We are in a race now, not just against time, but against our own kind." Do-Hyen looked at his backpack, containing the two vessels. He had thought finding them would be difficult. He hadn't expected to be fighting other humans for them, but there was no turning back now. The hunt had begun, and failure meant the end of everything. Over the next 3 weeks, Do-Hyen's team grew. They recruited Yunji, a brilliant engineer who worked at a technology company in Seoul. She was Jaiwan's cousin and had always been interested in ancient mysteries. When she learned about the soul vessels, she immediately wanted to help. Yunji brought skills they desperately needed. She studied the vessels with scientific instruments and discovered something amazing. The spheres weren't just containers for dragon consciousness. They were generating a quantum field that actually held reality together in certain areas of Earth. "This is incredible," Yunji said, showing them data on her laptop. "These vessels are creating stable points in space-time. Without them, the fabric of reality would collapse in those locations." The dragons weren't exaggerating about the shield. It's literally holding our world together. With Yunji's help and Miho's guidance, they found 3 more vessels over the following weeks. One was hidden in a temple in Japan. Another was buried under a mountain in Tibet. The third was at the bottom of a lake in Indonesia. Each time they recovered a vessel, a new dragon consciousness joined their mental network. Some dragons, like Miho, were kind and helpful. Others, like Yuna, were angry and distrustful. But all of them agreed on one thing. The shield was failing faster than they had thought. They had maybe 2 months before it collapsed completely. Dohain experienced more memories with each vessel he touched. He learned that his ancestor, Taeyong, had been more than just an ally to the dragons. Taeyong had been bonded to Miho in a special way. The bond had made them share thoughts, feelings, and even life force. It had made Taeyong stronger, faster, and able to live much longer than normal humans. One night, as they rested in a hotel in Japan, Miho spoke to Dohain privately through the sphere. "Dohain, I need to tell you something important," Miho said. "When all 13 vessels are united, we will have a choice. We can simply restore the shield, which will last another 1,000 years. Or we can revive the dragons fully, bringing us back to our physical bodies." "Isn't revival better?" Dohain asked. "If you're alive again, you can help defend Earth directly." "Yes, but revival requires something difficult," Miho said quietly. "It requires a human guardian to serve as an anchor. The guardian must bond with the dragon collective, linking their life force to ours. This bond is permanent. The guardian will gain great power and live for thousands of years, but they will no longer be fully human. They will be something in between. And you want me to be this guardian," Dohain said. "It wasn't a question. You are Taeyang's descendant. You have the right bloodline. And I trust you," Miho said. "But I will not force you. This must be your choice." Before Dohain could respond, Jaiwen entered the room. She had heard part of the conversation. "Don't do it," she said firmly. "Dohain, you can't give up your humanity. There has to be another way." "We'll discuss it later," Dohain said. "Right now, we need to focus on finding the remaining vessels." But Jaiwen's words stayed with him. What would it mean to become something other than human? Would he still be himself? Would he still care about the same things, love the same people? Their next target was a vessel hidden in an underground facility in the mountains of North Korea. Getting there would be nearly impossible, but Miho insisted it was crucial. This particular vessel contained the consciousness of the dragon leader, the one who had organized the entire SHIELD project. They were planning the mission when Hannah's organization struck again. This time, it wasn't a chase. It was a trap. They had traveled to an abandoned factory in southern Japan, where another vessel was supposedly hidden. Yunji's equipment detected the quantum signature. Everything seemed normal, but when they entered the building, armed people surrounded them from all sides. Hannah stepped out of the shadows. This time, she had brought at least 30 soldiers. "I told you we'd meet again," Hannah said. "You've been very busy collecting vessels. 5 now, if my information is correct." "Let us go," Dohain said. "You don't understand what's at stake." "I understand perfectly," Hannah said. "And that's why I'm taking the vessels. All of them." One of her soldiers grabbed Jaiwen and held a gun to her head. Jaiwen struggled, but the man was too strong. "No!" Dohain shouted. "Give me the vessels and your friend lives," Hannah said calmly. "Fight and she dies. Simple choice." Dohain looked at his backpack where the 5 vessels were stored. Then he looked at Jaiwen's frightened face. He had no choice. "Okay," he said. "Okay, just don't hurt her." He started to lower his backpack when Yunji suddenly spoke up. "Wait," Yunji said. She turned to Hannah. I'm sorry, Dohayan. I'm sorry, Jaiwan, but I can't let you continue this mission. Dohayan stared at her in shock. Yinji, what are you doing? I've been working with the Purity Council for 2 months, Yinji said, her voice shaking. That's what Hannah's organization is called. They contacted me after you found the second vessel. They told me the truth about the dragons. They showed me evidence. What evidence? Jaiwan demanded angrily. Historical records of dragon attacks on humans. Documents showing how dragons use humans as servants. Proof that they saw us as inferior creatures, Yunji said. The Purity Council has been preserving this knowledge for generations. They know the dragons can't be trusted. Those are lies. Mio's voice suddenly spoke to the vessels in Dohayan's backpack. All the dragon consciousnesses spoke together, making the voice powerful and echoing. We made mistakes in the past. Some dragons did wrong things. But we changed. We gave up everything to save your species. Or you gave up everything because you lost the war and needed humans to save you, Hannah said. We'll never know the truth, will we? But I'm not willing to risk the freedom of humanity on trust. Hannah's soldiers took the backpack from Dohayan. They also took the equipment Yunji had been using to track the vessels. Take them to the holding room. Hannah ordered. We'll decide what to do with them later. They were locked in a small room in the factory basement. Jaiwan sat in the corner, crying. Dohayan paced back and forth, his mind racing. I can't believe Yunji betrayed us, Jaiwan said. She thought she was doing the right thing. Dohayan said quietly. She was scared. The dragons are powerful. I can understand why she'd be afraid. Hours passed. Then the door opened. It was Yunji. She looked upset, her eyes red from crying. I made a terrible mistake, she whispered. I need to get you out of here. Why should we trust you? Jaiwan asked coldly. Because I saw what they're planning, Yunji said. The Purity Council doesn't just want to stop you from collecting the vessels. They want to destroy all of them. I was monitoring their communications. They have the technology to do it. They're going to detonate an electromagnetic pulse that will shatter all the soul vessels at once. That will collapse the shield. Dohayan said. I know, Yunji said. I tried to tell them. I showed them my data, the quantum readings, everything, but their leader, Director Kyungo, doesn't believe the VRYNN are real. He thinks it's all dragon propaganda. He said even if the shield collapses, nothing will happen. And if something does happen, humanity will deal with it without dragon help. He's going to kill everyone on Earth, Dohayan said in horror. I know, Yunji said. That's why I'm helping you escape. I have satellite data I didn't show the Council. There are spatial anomalies at the edge of the solar system. Something is pushing against the barrier. The VRYNN are real, and they're trying to break through. She handed Dohayan a key card. This will get you past the security doors. The vessels are in the main lab on the 3rd floor. Most of the soldiers went with Hannah to search for more vessels. There's only a few guards left. What about you? Dohayan asked. I'll create a distraction, Yunji said. Just promise me you'll stop them. Stop the Council from destroying everything. They escaped through the factory, moving quietly through dark hallways. They could hear guards talking in the distance. When they reached the lab, they found the 5 vessels sitting on a table, connected to machines that Yunji had built. Dohayan quickly disconnected them and put them back in his backpack. As they turned to leave, alarms started blaring. Yunji had set off the fire alarm system. They ran through the chaos, past confused guards, and out into the night. They didn't stop running until they reached the train station several miles away. On the train back to Seoul, Dohayan held the backpack close. They now had 5 vessels, but the Purity Council knew their plans. And somewhere out there, Director Kyungo was preparing to destroy everything in the name of protecting humanity. Time was running out. Yunji met them in Seoul 3 days later. She brought more bad news. The Purity Council had found 6 more soul vessels using her tracking technology. That meant they controlled 6 vessels, while Dohayan's team only had 5. There were still 2 vessels left to find. Where the last 2? Dohayan asked Miho through the sphere. One is at Mount Baekdu, Miho said. the sacred mountain where Korea was born. The other is with the Purity Council's highest leader. Director Kyung-go himself carries it. He has had it for many years, keeping it hidden and secret. Mount Baekdu is on the border between North Korea and China, Jae-win said. How are we supposed to get there? I know people who can help, Suho said. He had stayed with them after Mongolia, feeling connected to the mission. I have contacts who guide people through difficult borders. It will be dangerous, but possible. They made plans quickly. Time was running out. Yunji's satellite data showed the spatial anomalies growing stronger every day. The VRYNN were pushing harder against the weakening shield. They had maybe 2 weeks before it collapsed completely. The journey to Mount Baekdu took 5 days. They had to travel secretly, avoiding both North Korean patrols and Purity Council agents. Suho's contacts helped them cross the border at night. Finally, they stood at the base of the sacred mountain, looking up at its snow-covered peak. The vessel is inside the mountain, Miho said. There's a chamber built by dragons and humans together, 3,000 years ago. It was meant to be the heart of the alliance. They climbed through ancient tunnels carved into the rock. The walls were covered in symbols that glowed faintly as they passed. Do-Hyeon felt like the mountain itself was alive, watching them. Deep inside the mountain, they found a massive chamber. The ceiling stretched high above them, supported by crystal pillars. In the center of the room sat a stone platform, and on that platform was a 12th soul vessel. But there was something else. Behind the platform stood a huge crystalline structure, like a giant cocoon. Inside the crystal, Do-Hyeon could see a shape. It was enormous, easily the size of a bus. The shape had scales, wings, and a long neck. Miho, Do-Hyeon whispered. Is that? My body, Miho said softly. When we placed our consciousness into the vessels, we left our physical forms in stasis. This is where I have slept for 3,000 years. Do-Hyeon approached the 12th vessel carefully. When he touched it, he expected another dragon consciousness to speak. Instead, he felt something different. This vessel was empty. It had been prepared, but never used. This was meant to be a spare, Miho explained, in case one of the 13 dragons fell in battle before we could complete the transfer. We were fortunate. All 13 of us survived long enough to create the shield. Then we have 11 dragon consciousnesses and 1 empty vessel. Do-Hyeon said, we still need the 13 from Director Kyung-go. Before they could discuss further, the chamber's entrance exploded. Armed soldiers poured in, led by Hana and Director Kyung-go himself. Kyung-go was an older man, maybe 60 years old, with gray hair and cold eyes. He carried a briefcase, and Do-Hyeon knew immediately what was inside. The 13th soul vessel. You made it easy for us, Kyung-go said. We simply followed you here. Now we have all the vessels in one place. Perfect. You don't understand what you're doing, Do-Hyeon said. The shield is failing. The VRYNN are real. If you destroy the vessels, everyone dies. I have heard the dragon lies for 30 years, Kyung-go said. He opened his briefcase and took out the 13th vessel. This one was different. Its scales were red like blood, and it pulsed with an angry light. My grandfather carried this vessel. His grandfather before him. For generations, my family has guarded it to prevent the dragons from returning. The dragons gave up everything to save us. Jae-win shouted. The dragons want to control us. Kyung-go shouted back. I have studied the true history. Before they created the shield, they ruled over humans like gods. They took whatever they wanted. They treated us like servants. The VRYNN story is just an excuse to make us grateful, to make us obedient. He pulled out a device from his briefcase. It looked like a small bomb with wires connecting to the vessel. This electromagnetic pulse would destroy all 13 vessels simultaneously, Kyung-go said. The dragons will finally be gone forever. Humanity will be free. You'll kill everyone. Yunji said, I showed you the data. The anomalies are real. Anomalies can be explained by natural phenomena, Kyung-go said. I will not risk human freedom based on fear. He started entering a code into the device. Do-Hyeon knew he had only seconds to act. Without thinking, He ran forward and grabbed the 13th vessel from Kyungo's hands. The moment he touched it, power exploded through his body. The consciousness inside was ancient and powerful. It was a dragon leader, the one who had organized everything, and it had been waiting. Finally, a deep voice said in Dohyan's mind, a guardian with a bloodline, "Quickly, boy, accept the bond. It is the only way to stop him." "The bond will change me," Dohyan said. "Yes, but your world will live. Choose now." Dohyan looked at Jaiwan. She was shaking her head, tears in her eyes. She didn't want him to do this, but he knew there was no other choice. "I accept," Dohyan said. Energy from all 13 vessels suddenly flowed into him. He screamed as his body transformed. His skin glowed with the same blue light as the vessels. Symbols appeared on his arms, the same symbols carved into the spheres. He could feel the consciousness of all 13 dragons merging with his mind. Power filled him. He could sense the quantum field around Earth. He could feel the weak points in the shield. And beyond the shield, he could sense them, the VRYNN, pressing against the barrier, hungry and patient. Kyungo tried to activate his device, but Dohyan moved faster than any human could move. He grabbed the device and crushed it in his hand. The metal crumbled like paper. "It's too late," Dohyan said, but his voice was layered with 13 others. "The bond is complete. The guardians have returned." The 13 soul vessels began to glow brilliantly. Energy flowed from them to Dohyan, and from Dohyan back to them. The connection was complete. The shield around Earth suddenly strengthened, blazing with renewed power. In orbit above Earth, invisible to normal eyes, massive shapes became visible for just a moment. VRYNN ships, hundreds of them, surrounding the planet. They had been waiting for the shield to fail. Now they crashed against a renewed barrier and could not pass through. Behind Dohyan, the crystal cocoon containing Miho's body began to crack. Light poured out from the fractures. The dragon was waking up. All across the world, in hidden chambers, the other 12 dragons began to wake as well. The bond with Dohyan had triggered their revival. Miho's crystal shattered completely. The dragon stepped out, shaking himself like a cat. He was magnificent. His scales shimmered with colors that seemed to shift between blue and silver. His eyes were ancient and kind. He looked at Dohyan and bowed his head. "Thank you, Guardian," Miho said with his actual voice now, deep and resonant. "You have saved both our species." Kyungo fell to his knees, staring in disbelief. His soldiers lowered their weapons, too shocked to fight. Through the chamber's entrance, they could all see the night sky. And in that sky, for just a moment, everyone could see the VRYNN ships pressing against the shield. "They're real," Hannah whispered. It was all true. Kyungo said nothing. He simply stared at the evidence of his mistake. Miho turned to address everyone in the chamber. "For 3,000 years, we slept while humans forgot us. We do not blame you for your fear. We made mistakes in the ancient past. Some dragons did abuse their power. But we have learned, and now we offer new alliance, not as masters and servants, but as equals, partners, friends." Dohyan felt the changes in his body settling. He was no longer fully human, but he was still himself. He could still feel love, joy, hope. The bond hadn't taken his humanity. It had expanded it. Jaiwan approached him carefully. "Dohyan, are you still in there?" "I'm still me," he said with his own voice. "Just more." She hugged him tightly, crying, "Don't ever scare me like that again." Over the following weeks, the world learned the truth. The dragons revealed themselves to humanity. There was fear at first, and some people like Kyungo refused to accept them. But the evidence of the VRYNN threat was undeniable. Satellites captured images of the alien ships. Scientists confirmed the quantum shield's existence. Slowly, carefully, a new alliance formed. Dragons and humans working together again, preparing for the day when the VRYNN would find a way to break through the shield. Dohyan stood on Mount Baekdu, watching the sunrise. Miho's dragon form stood beside him, massive and powerful. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Through their bond, they understood each other perfectly. The ancient alliance had returned. and this time it would endure. Earth had its defenders once more.